I'm doing good, thank you. Like all is good. We had a couple beautiful days. I think tomorrow is going to go downhill again for us, but you know what? We'll take some nice weather, some folks visiting, some good coffee, and we're good to go. Go. I have well, where I grew up in southern Alberta was we had seasons. We had legitimate seasons. You'd have severity, but I, I've never lived anywhere. I've been all over the United States now. I've never experienced this volatility and like especially in this seasons like this 85-degree one day, 50 and 30 and snow the next tornadoes like just for the birds. Well, thing is every storm, high wind and tornado warning causes me abject stress because of the zoo and worried about the animals and fencing and trees coming down, no, this is not something I'll ever get used to. We're in full uh field trip, field trip seasons. I mean, April hits and they schools start booking field trips, and we almost every day we are very very busy. For us now, is it like it's like 150, 200 kids at a time? We do try to space them out so it doesn't get to be too much in that, but no, it's looking really promising already. We've refreshed the grounds. We're trying to make sure that we do as much as we can to do our spring cleaning piece. So we're excited that people are happy to be out in the warm weather. Yes. So we had two guanacos. They had been living here. They are also relatives of the vicuna and the llama for the longest time, Dot and Dash. And Dash, the male, had been struggling with just chronic health issues, but it wasn't an appropriate social situation. Like normally they would live in herds and actually the male would run it. Well, our girl Dot was in charge of the situation. So that was probably causing him some stress. There weren't other animals around to buffer. And so, just over time, even though we were providing the best care we could for his social well being, we just wanted them to go to somewhere there was a herd. And so, it was actually the Trevor Zoo in New York who were taking it was an AZA recommendation for one of our red ruffed lemur females that they were interested in them because they have one guanaco and a llama that they wanted to provide and build a social group for. So, off went Dot and Dash. They're doing really, really well. We've shared, the Trevor Zoo posts on our Facebook page and stuff as well, but that let us bring in the much smaller and domesticated alpacas. Fill the same niche. They're South American based, but we can have a correct number of them in the same facilities because they're much smaller. So they come in, they look like, cream and brown colored puff balls. They're up in like the building with a kind of a concrete pad. They're off exhibit right now. They are living in that holding building, but we're trying to accelerate their quarantine by making sure there's no parasites or anything with them so we can have them out for people to see as soon as possible. They're really cute. So we're still working on that. We're doing some refreshes in there. We're going to try and rearrange some new enrichment, some opportunities for them to engage with one another, feeding stations, shade stations. Like so, the team has been working on that. We're going to continue doing that so that when they come out, they've got a great refreshed yard for them. We have no idea what they're going to do and how they're going to behave. They actually did come from a local. We worked very closely with like a local alpaca farmer and that to negotiate this and bring this in. So we're excited. They know the area. They're probably used to the weather more than me. We have no idea how they're going to act in that yard and around guests. We're very excited, but they're very interested in people. Like they really do engage well, and they're really interested in people. So we'll see how they go. We think they'll be very popular. I actually don't know the name. I would have to look that up for you for next time because our animal care manager was negotiating and coordinating that. Do you know? Oh, now I'm gonna forget. Like I never remember geography, like where they were from. It's very nearby. It's in one of the little sort of areas, like right here around the Bloomington Normal area. Not well. I mean, we've always got like we're forever like following AZA recommendations. Like we've got a couple of little birds from the aviary going out. We got a couple of little birds from the other zoos coming in. We exchange like wallabies. When we need to. We are recommended to get a new male red panda. He's coming from somewhere out east. I don't recall which zoo offhand. So we're like working on coordinating that. So there's always those kind of like little transfers, but we don't have any other major ones right at the moment. That was last year. We did unfortunately lose our male Burma. He had had an episode over the weekend where the keepers caught it really quickly, and he was rushed for medical care, and then brought back. But then they found him like the one morning, unfortunately deceased in his habitat. Went through the whole necropsy. I mean, there are a lot of issues related to red pandas under human care. A lot of them are related to adrenals. There's different kind of issues. It's one of the things in the AZA and the different SSP groups research all the time. And so we have actually been waiting. China's been doing fine. She's still been great out there. She made it through the whole winter with no problems. And so we're looking to get a male to come in from somewhere else for possible reproduction. We'll see how they go and they get along, but we're hoping we can do that, in the next few months and arrange that as well. I don't think they're critically endangered, but they are up there. We do work very closely with the Red Panda Network. That is one of the conservation initiatives that Miller Park Zoo supports. So yeah, because I mean they do have a lot of issues in their natural habitat with deforestation, habitat fragmentation, human conflict. So we probably talked about the Joey. So the Joey's been around, and I could we don't know when he was born because there's a whole when you get into macropods and kangaroos and wallaroos. So they're like if you ever watched look it up they're like the size of a jelly bean. They're like mammals, so they're birth and then they like do this little slug ooze crawling up. They get into mom's pouch and then they stay there and they gestate. But there's delayed different sorts of things. So like the breeding could have been 8 months ago, and or it could have been like 2 weeks before the event happened. Like macropods are very odd that way. What we do know is we were monitoring it carefully, and you saw the pouch growing, and then we saw kicking in that. So we knew something was in there. We were able to do a pouch check during a routine exam of Bindi, the mom, at one point. So we knew someone was in there. And last time we were actually in the midst of the guess the gender for a fun kind of social media for everybody else. But this is now, we've turned it over to the society, obviously our fundraising arm, and they have turned this into a fundraising donation campaign for vote for our favorite names. We did curate those. I'm going to tell you because I made sure that the animal care team and our staff all had votes on the submissions for what we were going to put up, because otherwise you end up with some really odd names if the public just starts voting or calling them out and then votes happen in that. You want to have some fun one day, Google naming contests gone wrong for animals, and you'll come up with some funny stuff. I was not putting us in that position at all. So we curated those options. I'm always reminded about there's that episode of The Big Bang Theory where they get hold of Mark Hamill's dog, and he's like, yeah, I got lucky. He was almost named Honey Baked Hamill, and I'm like, there's zero chance anything like that was going to happen if I could help it. So no, we still we so previously we have had here before a John Bon Jovi. This time the closest we got to that I like we voted on was Joey Tribbiani. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see how the pop culture reference competes with the other choices out there. It is absolutely. You can actually should be able to find a link on the Miller Park Zoological Society's Facebook page and their website, but you can find links on either one. We've also linked it through our social media, so it's pretty easy to find. You can see the names. You choose your amount of donation, and it'll actually be the winning name will be on the amount of donations contributed per each name, and then that decision they're going to make at the end of the contest, which is listed in that on the site. Yep, that's what we thought we'd try to have fun with this time around. So We talked a little bit about it for the society's aspect of things, for their website and their Facebook page, Miller Park Zoological Society. For us, you can go to the city's website and look for Miller Park Zoo. We also have our social media, Facebook and Instagram, that we keep more current, and that's where you're going to see the most up-to-date stuff. So Carousel Relics out of Ohio is the company that we had been working with. They dismantled and took it away last fall. We were expecting probably like 6 to 8 months for them to work on it. I mean, the entire thing has been refinished, like blasted, like repainted, refinished. The animals, interestingly enough, our animals were not any type of wood. They were actually an aluminum base, which actually allowed them to like use a dip to scour and get rid of everything off. There were some repairs that were needed because of the age of them, but they've been lovingly restoring every single aspect of that. We're waiting right now. We're hoping for confirmation, in the next couple of weeks. They're waiting for just that canopy piece, and they're trying to nail down somebody because, as you can imagine, carousels are not that common. So they're trying to get that last little piece, and then they'll give us a ship date. But we hope to have that the carousel. They'll bring it back. Will unload it, and then they'll get it all reinstalled back on the same site that it was. Meanwhile, our team, Park and Rec and the zoo, we have been restoring the site. We've like worked with the society. The society is actually also helping with a contract for new decorative fencing once the carousel goes up. So we've got some timelines in place. We're just waiting for to hear that it's all done and it's on our way. So my hope is by the next time we talk, that thing's either back up or we know what day it's coming. Oh, absolutely. It is the society, like it was when I first got here. I don't know remember if we talked about this. I walked around the zoo and like being accredited and having gone through all of this, like accreditation is not just how we care for the animals, it's about everything. It's about how we manage our funds, it's about conservation, it's about staff culture, but it's also about the aesthetics of your zoo, our educational graphics and whatever. And that poor faded carousel with its little tattered old, canopy that it had, it just broke my heart every time I saw it. And so the society actually that year, we decided that was going to be our project of greatest need. And so they found and located, the company. We started fundraising and working for that from all the major events. What was really interesting about it is, and again, as left-brained as I am, I do everything from like AZA, it's the best thing for the zoo, the animals, and not being from the community, I don't think about nostalgia and the impact that it can have. But like when we reopened the Katofer building after 4 years of being closed, people that had not previously donated to the zoo or to events were making donations towards the carousel because they had memories about their children, their grandchildren coming and enjoying that. And so I anticipate that when the society does have a hey, it's back event, it's going to, we hope to be like a really big deal. And people used the heck out of that thing and loved it when it was in its less happy state. It is going to come back brand new and beautiful, and we are excited. We are hoping. We are hoping. My hope is that they can secure the canopy thing and we can get it delivered and reinstalled before Memorial Day. I can't make any promises because again, there's some uncontrolled variables, but I'm sure hoping. Yes. So the original master plan, and actually I memorized that sucker before I came for my interview way back when, that was 2012. So where our problems with master plans come in is like, for example, that master plan was developed, the previous architects or whatever else, it was supposed to be 10 to 15-year master plan. I don't think we did anything on the master plan according to what it had been predicted. And that's kind of where some of the flaws of them can come in because things change, animals' needs change, like site changes. So we've got all these different factors to consider in. But we're going to try and make it a very engaging community, staff, whatever process. But where we're at right now, we had actually submitted the request for quotes and proposals out. I had specifically had some companies that I had reached out to make sure that they knew that the city had posted that publicly. We were going to receive 10, but one of the architects specialized was in, we had 9 applicants, which really surprised me for our tiny little zoo. And then we've been working through the process and narrowing that down through our evaluation committee to get them. We ended up with a top 4. We narrowed that down to a top 3. And so now we're in the final selection process that then, of course, needs to be approved by city council. But we hope to have that, by the end of the month available for public information. Concurrently, Miller Park is also separately with their own Miller Park master plan, and that project was actually awarded to the Confluence Company. So we will be working very, very closely with them to integrate, the park and the zoo master plans moving forward once we select a candidate. There's some really interesting approaches that have been out, and I've seen a couple things like so at Denver Zoo, as an example. They did a couple talks at AZA conferences where what they're doing is they've gone through with like kind of mini plans that instead of being a giant 15-year, they're like much shorter. But what they did was they assessed like all of their existing structures, and they defined and determined that like their oldest buildings were like hoof stock and whatever else, right smack in the middle of the zoo. So then they're shaping all of their plans to how do we refresh and we upgrade those. And I can tell you, I know that, the community is going to have very strong feelings about different things. So everybody or someone out there is going to want an elephant or a giraffe or whatever else. But for me, I've been here 2.5 years now. Like we've struggled with the Katofer building. We want to be able to modernize that. We know that's not up to like modern standards. And then when AZA has come in, both inspection teams have commented that on the other end by wolves, we have old wooden wire habitats. We still take care of them well, but those do not reflect modern standards. So we're really going to have to like look at through this process, what do we have, and then start prioritizing even our little zoo into kind of zones and sections for, what needs to go first, and then what can we do that would be so much better in that space. And in the meantime, there's still animals there. Where do the animals go? It's going to be a real juggling thing, but we're going to have stakeholders involved, the society, the city, the community will be reached out through surveys and probably participation things, and of course, all of our zoo team here. So it'll be a really great process. I'm going to be happy to tell you guys all about. Correct, absolutely. And I think another one of my hopes is that when you come into Miller Park, the park is a great big historic park. There's the lagoon, there's war memorials, there's the historic pavilion, but it's pretty obvious where the zoo is. Like there's some hard lines, there's some chain link fencing. Like it is a zoo that's just chunked in the middle of the park. And I'm really hoping that through this process of the dual master plans, we can find a way to integrate it more, softly and more cohesively in so it's not so obvious and that the park just, kind of blends but leads right into the zoo without like, it being so harsh. Please go visit the city website. You can find the zoo information on there. You can also go and keep current with our social media, Facebook and Instagram for Miller Park Zoo. The Miller Park Zoological Society also has a website and has social media you can check on as well.